Enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. I perished on a night when snow blanketed the sky in blinding white. The shattered tiles of the cold palace could hardly shield me from the bone-chilling wind. Gusts of freezing air, sharp as knives, pierced through to my very flesh. I curled up inside a moldy cotton quilt, my breath shallow and fragile, silently listening to the faint, ethereal melodies of flutes and zithers drifting from afar. Tonight was New Year's Eve. Emperor William was feasting with his officials. And I, the one who once sat upon the throne of the Empress, now could not even beg for a bowl of hot porridge. My lady. Anna's voice grew weaker in the cold wind. She had been burning with a high fever for 3 days. Her condition was even graver than mine. At this moment she was barely holding on. I grasped her hand. Skin and bone, gaunt and dry. And in my mind, I could not help but recall the old years. From the moment she followed me out of the Eastern Palace, stepping up to the Empress's seat, and then falling with me into this bottomless abyss. A lifetime of loyalty and devotion, only to be exchanged for such a desolate ending. If there is a next life, I mumbled, my throat dry and stinging with pain. If there is a next life. My consciousness gradually faded. Before my eyes a blurry figure appeared, Elizabeth. She stood there, still young and beautiful as in the beginning, wearing a pale pink dress, exactly like the first time we met. Lady Catherine, you are awake. I abruptly opened my eyes. Before me was the fresh, youthful face of Anna, full of vitality. She was holding a bowl of hot medicine to steady the pregnancy, smiling meaningfully at me. Crown Prince William gave special instructions this morning, Anna said softly. He said that since Consort Catherine has been suffering from morning sickness lately, the kitchen should prepare some light porridge. Anna helped me sit up, carefully placing a soft pillow behind my back. The royal physician also said that the signs of your pregnancy are very good. It will surely be a healthy little prince. I stared blankly down at my flat lower abdomen, my fingertips unconsciously stroking it gently. Is this Arthur, my firstborn, the child who died prematurely? I looked around. The familiar bedchamber appeared before my eyes. It was indeed the place I lived in years ago at the Eastern Palace. What day is it today? My voice trembled slightly. Reporting to my lady, today is the 10th of April. Anna looked at me with confusion. Have you forgotten? The eldest miss, Lady Elizabeth, is coming to visit you today. My heart shook violently. It was this very day. It was this very visit. Prince William fell in love at first sight with my elder sister, and from there, my destiny completely changed course. In my past life, I hated this day to the bone. I hated Elizabeth for stealing my husband. But at this moment, my heart was strangely calm. Comb my hair, I whispered. No need to be too grand. Simple will do. When Elizabeth arrived, I was in the rear garden enjoying the flowers. Sister. She walked towards me with a radiant smile. Her pale pink dress accentuated her skin, white as snow. In my previous life, I was jealous to the point of madness of that appearance. But looking back now, it felt like a story from another lifetime. She was indeed beautiful, breathtakingly so. But so what? Sister Elizabeth. I smiled faintly, not standing up to welcome her. Elizabeth paused for a moment, surprised by my coldness. But she quickly hid it and smiled. Hearing the news that my younger sister is expecting, father and mother were overjoyed. They specially told me to bring some nourishing gifts for you. She signaled for the maid behind her to present several exquisite brocade boxes. I told Anna to accept them and offer thanks, but I said no more. Sister, your complexion doesn't look very good today, Elizabeth asked with concern. Is the pregnancy making you uncomfortable? I am a little tired, I replied indifferently. Sister, you have traveled a long way. Why don't you go to the front hall and have some tea first? I will change my clothes and come out shortly. I intentionally delayed, lingering in the bedchamber for another half-hour. In my past life, I was eager to show off the crown prince's favor, so I deliberately let Elizabeth arrive but he left the manor. But now, I only wanted to stay far away from that fateful encounter. Unfortunately, heaven does not follow human wishes. When I slowly walked into the front hall, Prince William was already sitting there, chatting with Elizabeth. Happy laughter rang out ceaselessly. The look in his eyes as he gazed at her was a look of awe and infatuation that I was painfully familiar with. Your Highness. I calmly curtsied. Catherine, you are here. The crown prince smiled and waved his hand. Your sister is truly talented and beautiful. We were just discussing poetry. Her insights are extraordinary. Elizabeth bowed her head shyly. Your Highness praises me too much. I quietly watched the scene before me. My heart was as still as water. If it were my past life, my heart would have been in so much pain I couldn't breathe. But now, I only found it ridiculous. Men will forever pursue things that do not belong to them. Sister is indeed more talented than others. I smiled and said, I am a bit tired, so allow me to excuse myself first. Your Highness and sister, please take your time chatting. Prince William was briefly surprised by my attitude, but his attention was very quickly pulled back by Elizabeth. I turned and left the front hall without a shred of lingering affection. From that day on, the number of times the prince went to the Shen Manor increased. I focused on nurturing my pregnancy, no longer asking about his whereabouts. Occasionally, when he visited my courtyard, I simply served him dutifully like consort Vanessa, who was then a minor consort, no longer wasting effort trying to please him like in my past life. Lady Catherine, why aren't you anxious at all? Anna said worriedly. The crown prince hasn't come to our courtyard for 5 days straight. I heard that the eldest miss. Anna, I interrupted her, go get the small set of clothes I was embroidering. But, my lady, I want to sit in the courtyard and finish it. I am not in a hurry. Because I clearly knew my ending. Elizabeth would enter the Eastern Palace. She would become the crown princess, the legitimate wife, and I would forever live in her shadow. In my past life, I used every trick to fight for favor against her. In the end, I harmed others and harmed myself, pushing myself into a dead end with my own hands. In this life, I have decided to let go. 3 months later, Prince William indeed asked the emperor to issue a decree, wanting to marry Elizabeth as his official consort. Scarcely had the imperial decree been issued when, rarely enough, he came to my courtyard. Catherine. He was a bit awkward when he spoke, his voice hesitant. You know, Elizabeth, she is innocent. I calmly spoke before he finished, my voice had no ripples. Sister is both talented and beautiful. Becoming the crown princess is well deserved. I will stick to my duty and will not put your highness in a difficult position. The crown prince seemed unexpected that I would be so reasonable. He was stunned for a moment, then a look of gratitude appeared in his eyes. You are always so understanding. Understanding. In my past life, I heard those words countless times. The Empress must be understanding. A wife must be understanding. A woman must be understanding. But what did being understanding get me? Just a cold skeleton in the cold palace. Your Highness. I looked up at him. Speak. I want to move to the Serenity Pavilion in the west to nurture my pregnancy. That place is quieter. The crown prince hesitated slightly. That place is too remote, and you are pregnant. The royal physician said my pregnancy is very stable. It does not matter, I persisted. Moreover, after sister enters the Eastern Palace, affairs in the manor will surely be numerous. I want to stay away from the noise. Finally, he nodded in agreement. 3 days later, I took Anna and a few close maids to move to the Serenity Pavilion. The place was indeed remote, but its advantage was the quietness. Enough for me to stay away from trouble and peacefully wait for my child to be born. Arthur was born on a rainy night. When his cry rang out, tears streamed down my face. In my past life, you died prematurely because of harem struggles, becoming the pain of my entire life. In this life, I swear I must protect you completely. Consort Catherine. It is a healthy little prince, weighing over 6 pounds. The midwife held the swaddled baby for me to see. I carefully accepted him. Looking at the rosy face in my arms, my heart overflowed with softness. This is my flesh and blood. This is the most important person in this life of mine. It was not until 3 days later that Prince William came to visit us. His face was full of joy. He held Arthur and loved him so much he wouldn't let go. Catherine, you have given birth to a good son for this crown prince, he said happily. Father Emperor was also very pleased when he heard the news. Oh, Arthur? Arthur. I smiled weakly. Thank you, Your Highness. Elizabeth is also very happy. She specially prepared some nourishing items for you. He blurted out, his eyes still glued to the baby in his arms. In my heart, I laughed coldly. Elizabeth would naturally be happy. She probably only wished for me to stay in this Serenity Pavilion forever, never to disturb her loving life with the crown prince. In my past life, I hated her to the bone for that. But in this life, that is exactly what I wish for. Your Highness, I have an excessive request, I whispered. Speak. I want to continue living in the Serenity Pavilion. This place is quiet and suitable for Arthur to grow up. Moreover, I hesitated a bit before continuing. Sister has just entered the manor. I do not want to disturb the newlywed's life. The crown prince looked at me in surprise, a flash of guilt passing through his eyes. Catherine, you are always so thoughtful. All right, I will send more guards to protect you and your son. After he left, Anna couldn't help but ask, Lady Catherine, Why did I see you voluntarily ask to stay in this remote place? Now that the eldest miss has become the crown princess, you should do what? I interrupted her. Go fight for favor. Fight until you die and I live. I sighed softly and continued, Anna, look at the chrysanthemums in this garden. How quietly they bloom, how free they are. Why must one be that glamorous peony, attracting bees and butterflies, only to end up falling into the mud? Anna looked at me, half understanding, but ultimately said nothing more. 5 years later, Emperor William ascended the throne. Arthur was 6 years old. Just like in the previous life, Elizabeth was crowned Empress, and I was granted the title of Consort Shen, the noble consort. My lady, Consort Vanessa clashed verbally with Her Majesty the Empress in the royal garden again. Emma came in to report. I was teaching Arthur to write. I didn't even lift my head, simply saying calmly, it has nothing to do with us. But, Emma hesitated. Consort Vanessa relies on the merit of her father, General Pei, becoming more and more arrogant. Today, she even dared to mock Her Majesty the Empress for her fading beauty. Emma. I put down the brush, my voice gentle but decisive. Go to the small kitchen and see if the pear soup I stewed for Arthur is ready. Emma retreated dejectedly. Arthur looked up at me with his small face, asking in a childish voice, Mother, why does Consort Vanessa always bully Auntie Empress? I reached out and patted his head, speaking slowly, because they both like your father Emperor. They both want his favor. Arthur blinked and asked further, what about you, Mother? Don't you like Father Emperor? I smiled softly and replied, Mother has Arthur, and that is enough. This was the truth. Reborn for a lifetime, I had long seen through the illusion of imperial love. Instead of wasting effort fighting for favor, it is better to raise my son well. In my past life after Arthur passed away, I became crazy and cruel. But in this life, I only hope he can grow up in peace. Right at that moment, Emma rushed in again, reporting in a low voice, My lady, His Majesty is coming this way. I frowned slightly. Since entering the palace, I had always intentionally avoided the emperor. He also rarely came to my Blossom Palace. Why strictly today of all days? Before I could think much, Emperor William walked in. I led Arthur forward to bow. Rise. The emperor's voice was colder than in my memories. I was passing by the Blossom Palace and remembered I hadn't seen Arthur for a long time. I told Arthur to come forward and pay respects. The emperor looked at his son, a rare trace of gentleness appearing in his eyes. How are your studies? Arthur obediently replied, reporting to Father Emperor, I am studying the Analects. The emperor nodded with satisfaction, then looked at me. Consort Shen has taught him very well. I bowed my head modestly. Your Majesty praises too much. The emperor nodded, his gaze sweeping around. This palace of yours is actually quite elegant. The decoration of the Blossom Palace was indeed simple. Not as luxurious as Consort Vanessa's palace, nor as magnificent as the Empress's palace. Only a few tasteful porcelain pieces and a screen I embroidered myself. I replied softly. The emperor looked at me for a long time, then suddenly asked, Consort Shen, Catherine, do you resent me? My heart jumped slightly. I hurriedly replied, I do not dare. Is it truly a lack of courage or a lack of resentment? The emperor pressed, his voice lowering. Since entering the palace, you avoid me like avoiding a snake or scorpion. If I didn't take the initiative to come, you would never step foot in the royal study. Before, at the manor, you still knew how to smile at me. Now that we are in the palace, we have become strangers instead. There was an emotion in his voice that was hard to distinguish. I lowered my eyes, not answering. Should I tell him that I have seen through the fickleness of the emperor? Or say that his favor is just the moon in the water, a flower in the mirror? A moment later, I reluctantly found an excuse. I merely believe that your Majesty is burdened with 10,000 affairs of state. You should not be troubled by trivial matters of the harem. The emperor laughed coldly. What a righteous excuse. Catherine, I remember you weren't like this before. I secretly smiled bitterly in my heart, because back then, I was still foolish enough to believe in love. People change. Your Majesty. I looked up straight into his eyes. Right now, I only hope to raise Arthur well and be a law-abiding consort. The emperor's gaze became complex. He reached out as if wanting to touch my face, stopped in mid-air, and finally withdrew his hand. Fine, let it be. The emperor stood up and said, I will come to visit Arthur another day. Tomorrow the Empress is hosting a chrysanthemum banquet. You should go too. Don't always hide in your palace. I obey the decree. After the emperor left, I breathed a sigh of relief. Emma whispered, My lady, His Majesty seems to care about you very much. I shook my head gently. An emperor's heart is unfathomable. Today he cares, tomorrow he can discard you like a worn-out shoe. No need to take it to heart. In this life, I only want to be a bystander. When the day of the chrysanthemum banquet arrived, I deliberately chose a pale lotus-colored palace dress. On my hair bun, I only pinned 2 velvet flowers and a silver hairpin. Neither too shabby nor stealing the spotlight of the Empress and consort Vanessa. Arthur looked up and said, "Mother looks very beautiful today." I squatted down to look at him, instructing, "Arthur, remember carefully. At the banquet today, no matter what you see, come back and tell Mother. Do not speak casually there." The boy obediently nodded. "I understand. Just like Mother said, trouble comes from the mouth, does it not?" I happily patted his head, a rare softness rising in my heart. In my past life I was busy fighting for power, busy watching the cold-blooded chess games in the royal palace, and never properly taught Arthur about the treacherous human heart. I certainly never taught him how to keep himself safe amidst the mud of power. In this life, I only hope he stays away from those dirty struggles, living as a reasonable person with an open mind, unbound by vain glory. Right at that moment, Emma hurried in, bowed, and spoke respectfully but urgently. "My lady, I see the auspicious hour has arrived, we should depart." I held Arthur's hand and walked out of the Blossom Palace. The gentle autumn sunlight flowed over the palace walls, shining on the glazed tiles, sparkling brilliantly. This imperial city was cruelly beautiful, like a gold-plated dream. In the royal garden, the banquet was already set. Empress Elizabeth sat dignified in the main seat. A crimson phoenix robe accentuated her graceful nobility. Hardly anyone could compare. To her right sat consort Vanessa. She wore a bright plum-pink dress, her head full of pearls and jade, dazzling to the point of ostentation. I led Arthur forward. "Greetings to your Majesty the Empress." Elizabeth revealed a sincere smile, pointing to the seat on her left. "Sister, you are here. Sit here, it is convenient for us sisters to talk." I followed her words, stood up, and took Arthur there to sit. Before we could even settle, I heard consort Vanessa let out a cold snort, her voice unable to hide the sarcasm. "Her Majesty the Empress treats Sister Shen so intimately." Elizabeth replied gently, her voice neither heavy nor light. "Consort Shen is my biological sister, and she gave birth to the eldest prince for the Emperor. Naturally, I should care for her a bit more." Consort Vanessa waved the round fan in her hand, her red lips slightly curving up. Her words sounded unintentional but were full of hidden meaning. "The eldest prince, so what? He is not the legitimate son." I lowered my head to drink tea, simply finding it amusing. The distinction between legitimate and illegitimate originally started from etiquette, never solely based on birth mother. If one really brought this up to argue, it would be no different from handing a royal joke to the civil and military officials. Why fight for those vain titles? In the end, they all turn into a handful of yellow earth. Seeing that I completely ignored her, consort Vanessa became even more annoyed, so she switched to another topic. "Your Majesty, I heard the Ministry of Rites is preparing for the selection. I'm afraid in just over a month, this harem will be much livelier." Elizabeth nodded slightly. "The Emperor has been on the throne for 3 years. Indeed, it is time to enrich the harem." Consort Vanessa smiled faintly. Obviously, her news network in the palace was always better than others. Her red lips parted slightly, her words seeming casual but every word had thorns. "I think by then, there will be a few more princes and princesses to bring joy to our knees. The Empress Dowager will certainly be happy, just like the intelligent and quick-witted first prince over there." I was not angry, on the contrary, I chuckled softly. My voice was gentle but sharp. "I almost forgot to congratulate consort Vanessa. I heard that you recently invited a statue of the child, giving Guanyin to your palace. Someday, I must definitely come to burn a stick of incense. After all, who in this harem can carry the dragon seed, still depends on whether the Bodhisattva is willing to bless them or not." Consort Vanessa's face immediately turned a few shades paler. For a moment, she didn't know how to retort, so she could only glare at me resentfully. The Emperor's selection ceremony, held once every 3 years, finally arrived, earlier than in my previous life. I sat below the Empress, my eyes sweeping over each maiden standing in the hall. Most were 15 or 16 years old, fresh as budding flowers. Right at that moment, a familiar name suddenly caught my ear. Daughter of the Vice Minister of the Court of Imperial Sacrifices, Yan Huayan, Isabella Yan, 15 years old. I almost instinctively looked up toward the figure gracefully bowing in the center of the hall. Even though I had prepared myself mentally, when I truly saw Isabella again, my heart could not help but tremble. She wore a pale green palace dress. Her eyebrows were picturesque, her temperament refined and otherworldly, looking exactly like Elizabeth in her youth, vivid and full of life. The hall fell silent for a moment, so a quiet one could hear a pin drop. I quietly looked toward the Emperor, only to see him staring intently at Isabella. He didn't even notice that the teacup in his hand was tilting. Elizabeth's face, on the other hand, had long since turned pale, her fingers gripping the armrest of her chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Leave the plaque. Bestow the fragrant sachet." The eunuch's shrill voice rang out through the great hall. Isabella respectfully gave thanks. As she withdrew, she inadvertently looked up, her gaze meeting mine. A trace of confusion flashed in her eyes, but she quickly regained her composure as if nothing had happened. I immediately looked away, sighing softly in my heart. In this life, we have finally met again. Isabella was granted the title of Noble Lady Isabella and assigned to reside in the Jade Pavilion. This rank was a level higher than in the previous life, and her residence was far more luxurious and exquisite, enough to show how much the Emperor valued her. The Empress pleaded illness, exempting the concubines from the morning greeting. I was returning from the Palace of Compassion after paying respects to the Empress Dowager. Before I had gone far, I saw a procession of eunuchs and maids in the distance, carrying all sorts of rewards, filing toward the direction of the Jade Pavilion. The one leading them was head eunuch Li, the Emperor's personal attendant. "My lady, should we avoid them?" Emma asked in a low voice. I shook my head, my voice calm. "No need. We walk our path." Just as we turned the corner of the winding corridor, we bumped right into Consort Vanessa. Today, her makeup was particularly glamorous, the pearls and jade on her head sparkled under the sunlight. However, the gloom in the depths of her eyes could not be hidden. "Oh my, isn't this Consort Shen?" Vanessa curved her lips into a smile, her voice sickeningly sweet. "What's the matter? Are you also rushing to flatter the newly favored noble Lady Isabella?" I looked straight ahead, replying calmly, "Consort Vanessa must be joking. I just returned from paying respects to the Empress Dowager." Vanessa snorted coldly. "The Empress Dowager truly loves you. But I advise you not to be too smug. Who that Isabella looks like, you should be clear in your heart. Her Majesty the Empress is probably eating and sleeping poorly right now. As her concubine-born sister, aren't you going to comfort Her Majesty a little?" She intentionally emphasized the words, concubine-born sister. I couldn't help but laugh coldly in my heart. Vanessa was clearly trying to instigate, pushing me to confront Isabella so she could sit back and reap the benefits. Her Majesty naturally has the Emperor's care. Why must I interfere in superfluous matters? I replied indifferently. On the contrary, Consort Vanessa, your complexion hasn't been good lately. Do you need to summon a royal physician to take a look? Vanessa's face immediately darkened. Don't bother with your concern. After saying that, she flicked her sleeves and walked away. Emma looked at me worriedly and whispered, "My lady." I cut her off. "Pay it no mind. Let's return to the palace. Arthur is about to finish school." In the days that followed, the situation in the harem quietly changed. The Emperor summoned Isabella almost every day. Rewards flowed in the Jade Pavilion like water. The Empress's illness relapsed repeatedly, showing no sign of improvement. Consort Vanessa frequently, coincidentally, met the Emperor in the royal garden, but unfortunately, she gained little from it. As for me, I still lived quietly as before, focusing on raising Arthur. Occasionally, I went to the Palace of Compassion to chat with the Empress Dowager and listen to her recount some movements within the palace. The Dragon Boat Festival arrived, and a celebratory banquet was held in the palace. This was the first time Isabella officially attended a major banquet since entering the palace. The concubines were all secretly waiting to see exactly how capable this new favorite was. The banquet was set around a cool pavilion in the royal garden. I arrived early and chose an inconspicuous seat. The Empress sat in the main seat with a pale face, forcing herself to respond to greetings. Consort Vanessa sat below her to the right, her eyes constantly glancing toward the entrance. A moment later, the eunuch chanted loudly, "His Majesty arrives. Noble Lady Isabella arrives." Everyone hurriedly stood up to bow. Emperor William walked in holding Isabella's hand, a rare look of joy on his face. Isabella wore a yellow palace dress, only a few simple pearl flowers were pinned in her hair, which further accentuated her snow-white skin and peerless beauty. "You may all rise." The Emperor waved his hand and personally helped Isabella sit down, right next to Consort Vanessa. Vanessa's face turned green in an instant, the handkerchief in her hand was nearly crushed. The Empress forced a smile, but the loss in her eyes could not be concealed. The banquet began. Dancers took turns presenting graceful performances. Amidst the exchange of wine cups, consort Vanessa suddenly stood up. Your Majesty, I recently learned a new piece of music. I wish to dedicate it to you and the sisters. The emperor nodded absently. Granted. Vanessa ordered someone to bring a zither. She played, Phoenix Seeking Mate. To be fair, her zither skills were indeed extraordinary. It was just that playing a song expressing admiration at such a time was inevitably too blatant. When the song ended, the emperor merely said a faint, not bad, then turned back to whisper with Isabella. The smile on Vanessa's face stiffened, and a trace of cruelty flashed in her eyes. Noble Lady Isabella. Vanessa suddenly called out loudly. I heard that sister is talented in both arts and literature. I wonder if you can perform a piece today to open our eyes. Isabella replied modestly, my talent is shallow, I dare not show off my clumsy skills before consort Vanessa. Sister, why be so humble? Vanessa did not let go. The emperor often praises you for being proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Today is such a joyous day. It is perfect for everyone to enjoy together. I could see this was a trap. If Isabella refused, she would be seen as ungrateful. If she agreed, she would inevitably be compared. Isabella glanced at the emperor, seeing him nod slightly. She had no choice but to stand up and say, then I shall offer a clumsy performance. What surprised everyone was that she did not choose the zither, but ordered someone to bring a jade flute. As the sound of the flute rose, the entire hall seemed to fall silent in an instant. That melody, I had never heard it before. It was ethereal yet melancholy, like weeping, like complaining. Every note seeped into the ears, causing people's hearts to sink involuntarily. Once heard, one would be infatuated endlessly. The emperor's eyes gradually lit up. In the end, he couldn't help but clap his hands in praise. Excellent. This melody should only exist in heaven. How many times can one hear it in the mortal world? Isabella lowered the jade flute, her cheeks flushing pink, and smiled shyly. This is the song of longing that I composed myself. I fear I have made a joke of myself before your majesty. My beloved consort is too humble. The emperor laughed intimately, turning to order. Head eunuch Li, bestow upon noble Lady Isabella the pair of mutton, fat jade bracelets I collected. Consort Vanessa's face immediately became ugly to the extreme. She stood up abruptly, her voice urgent. Your Majesty, I am feeling unwell. Please allow me to excuse myself first. Without waiting for the emperor to reply, she angrily turned and left. The atmosphere at the banquet momentarily became awkward. Elizabeth tried to say a few polite words to salvage the situation. The banquet barely continued, but I still noticed her gaze constantly pausing on Isabella, containing tangled emotions that were hard to distinguish. Returning to the palace, Emma finally couldn't hold back and whispered, My lady, today consort Vanessa truly humiliated herself. I replied faintly, my tone without ripples. The more she acts like that, the more the emperor will detest her. Sure enough, not a few days later, news spread through the palace that consort Vanessa was punished with confinement for 1 month for disrespect before the emperor. As autumn arrived, Elizabeth's illness grew more severe day by day. When the Empress Dowager summoned me to talk, she worriedly mentioned that lately, Elizabeth had been mentally distracted. The royal physician said it was due to accumulated depression, and the emperor had not stepped foot in the Phoenix Palace for a very long time. I remained silent. In my past life, I couldn't wait for her to fall out of favor. Yet now, watching her step closer to the brink of collapse, a trace of reluctance arose in my heart. The Empress Dowager looked at me with meaningful eyes and spoke slowly. Go visit her. Persuade her to think more openly. Which woman in this harem has not experienced falling out of favor? Inside the Phoenix Palace, Elizabeth was so haggard I almost didn't recognize the radiant empress of the past. Now, she was just a gaunt figure with dark circles under her eyes. Sister, you are here. She forced a smile, her voice visibly hoarse. Sit. I curtsied and sat down by the edge of the bed, asking softly, Sister, have you felt any better lately? Better? How can I be better? Elizabeth suddenly became agitated, her voice trembling. The emperor hasn't stepped foot in the Phoenix Palace for 2 months. In his eyes, there is only that Isabella. That counterfeit. I signaled for the maids to withdraw, lowering my voice to remind her, Sister, be careful with your words. What do I have to fear? Elizabeth laughed bitterly, tears welling up. Is this Phoenix Palace any different from the cold palace now? Catherine, do you know? Yesterday was my birthday. The emperor didn't even have a single word of greeting or comfort, he only sent head eunuch Lai to bring rewards according to custom. Her tears fell silently. I gave everything for him, and in the end, he treats me like this. I sat there, momentarily not knowing how to comfort her. In my past life, Elizabeth maintained the dignity of an empress until death. But now, she had completely collapsed, crying loudly in front of me. Perhaps without my plotting against her, she found the reality of losing favor even harder to accept. I weighed every word and spoke slowly. The emperor is only temporarily bewitched by the novelty. In the end, he will understand clearly who treats him with true sincerity. Elizabeth shook her head slightly. The hope that remained in her eyes gradually became empty, and her voice became much lighter. He won't. I understand the emperor. Once he has a change of heart, he will never turn back. Speaking of this, she suddenly squeezed my hand tight, her strength trembling as if trying to grasp onto the last fragile thing. Catherine, do me a favor. I paused slightly but replied very quickly. Sister, just speak. Elizabeth's voice lowered until it almost dissolved into the air. I want to meet Isabella. Meet her privately. My heart shook. I unconsciously asked back. Sister, what do you want to do? Elizabeth curved her lips, a smile so bitter it lacked any color. Rest assured, I won't harm her. I just want to see exactly what is so special about that woman who replaced me. I hesitated for a moment. In my past life, Elizabeth and Isabella almost never had direct interaction. So what ending would this upcoming meeting lead to? Even I couldn't predict it. Leaving the Phoenix Palace, I didn't return to my bedchamber, but went straight to the Jade Pavilion. Upon seeing me, Isabella clearly showed surprise and hurriedly stood up to welcome me. Consort Shen, why did you come here personally? It should have been me coming to pay respects to you. I calmly observed her. In just a few short months, Isabella had completely shed the innocence of her early days in the palace. Every gesture and word had gained a few degrees of stability and confidence. Noble Lady Isabella is too polite, I said indifferently. I came here today to deliver a message on behalf of Her Majesty the Empress. Hearing the words, Her Majesty, Isabella's eyes flickered slightly, but she quickly hid it. Please speak, my lady. I looked straight at her, my voice neither heavy nor light. Her Majesty the Empress wants to meet you privately. Tomorrow at noon. In the rear garden of the Phoenix Palace, Isabella frowned slightly, hesitating to speak. This doesn't seem to be in accordance with the rules. I nodded. Indeed, it is not according to the rules. My gaze did not leave her. Therefore, whether to go or not is entirely up to noble Lady Isabella to decide for herself. Having said that, I turned and left, giving her no chance to continue questioning. I had done what I should. The rest could only depend on their own fate. The next day, when Arthur returned from school, I was bowing my head to trim a pot of chrysanthemums in the courtyard. Mother. The boy ran in excitedly, his voice clear and bright. I studied Mencius today. Tutor Zhang even praised me for understanding it very well. I put down the scissors, took a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his forehead, and said gently, Don't rush. Arthur suddenly lowered his voice, his expression serious, completely different from a moment ago. Mother, I have a question. My heart tightened slightly. Speak. The boy blinked his large eyes and asked very softly. Why does Father Emperor not like Mother Empress anymore? Isn't she the woman Father Emperor loves the most? My heart jumped involuntarily. Who told you these things? People in the palace are all discussing it, Arthur said honestly. They say noble Lady Isabella looks like Mother Empress when she was young, so Father Emperor favors her like that. I pulled him to sit beside me, my voice slow and serious. Arthur, you must remember Mother's words well. In this harem, love is the most unreliable thing. Being favored today and falling out of favor tomorrow are common occurrences. The most important thing is to keep your own heart firm and not be swayed by external things. Arthur nodded, half understanding. Just like you, Mother. I smiled. Correct, just like Mother. He hesitated a bit, then asked further. Then, if one day Father Emperor also doesn't like me anymore, what should I do? My heart stung with pain. I immediately hugged him. He won't. You are his eldest son, he will forever care about you. Moreover, I lifted his small face, looking straight into those eyes. No matter what happens, Mother will always be by your side. Arthur obediently leaned into my embrace, then suddenly looked up and said, his voice childish but earnest, Mother, when I grow up, I will protect you. I won't let anyone bully you. My heart softened in an instant, my eyes growing hot. The child who died before he could grow up in my past life, now healthy and lively in my arms, saying he wants to protect me. That is the greatest grace heaven has bestowed. Good boy. I lowered my head and kissed his forehead lightly. But for now, let Mother protect you first. Before my words were finished, Emma rushed in, her face pale. My lady, something happened at the Phoenix Palace. I immediately stood up and ran over. The Phoenix Palace was in chaos. Elizabeth had fainted on a stone table in the garden. Isabella was kneeling beside her, pinching her philtrum, while several maids stood around in panic, not knowing what to do. What happened? I quickened my pace. Seeing me, Isabella looked as if she had seen a savior, her voice trembling. Consort Shen. Her Majesty suddenly fainted. Say no more. I cut her off, signaling Emma and the others to help carry Elizabeth into the inner chamber. Summon the royal physician immediately. Isabella hesitated for a moment, then asked in a low voice, should I withdraw first? I looked at her deeply. What do you think? She bit her lip, understanding quickly. I understand. Today, I have never been to the Phoenix Palace. After she left, the physician arrived. He diagnosed that the Empress had accumulated stress for a long time and had irregular eating habits, leading to a deficiency in both Q and blood. She needs careful recuperation. I sent someone to the royal study to report the news, only to receive word that the Emperor was discussing matters with ministers and could not come, merely instructing the Empress to rest well. The physician stayed on duty. When Elizabeth woke up, the sky had already turned to dusk. She saw me sitting by the bed, a disappointment hard to conceal flashing in her eyes. He didn't come, did he? She asked softly. I didn't answer, only helping her sit up and offering a bowl of ginseng soup. Sister, drink some ginseng soup to regain your strength first. Elizabeth took a few sips, then suddenly asked, Isabella, what did she say to you? Nothing at all. I replied lightly. She had just arrived when you fainted. Elizabeth laughed bitterly. Do you know? She is very special. Not only does she resemble me in my youth, but she is also intelligent, thorough, and knows how to read the situation. Most importantly, the look in her eyes when she looks at the Emperor has admiration, has love, but does not have that crazy obsession like mine. I listened silently, an indescribable emotion rising in my heart. In front of outsiders, she was always the high and mighty Empress, but at this moment she calmly dissected her own failure. Sister, rest now. I helped her adjust the corner of the blanket. There are some things that cannot be forced. Elizabeth suddenly grabbed my hand tight. Catherine, you have changed. Before, in the Eastern Palace, in your eyes and heart there was only the Emperor. But now, you look at these things as if you are watching a play. My heart shook slightly. I never thought that the person who understood me best would be the person I once hated the most. People all change, I replied softly. The double Ninth festival passed. The weather gradually turned chilly. That day, I was sitting in the study teaching Arthur calligraphy. Just as the brush touched the paper, Emma hurried in to report. My lady, noble Lady Isabella requests an audience. My hand paused slightly. Isabella had entered the palace for more than half a year. This was the first time she had taken the initiative to come to the Blossom Palace. Invite her to wait in the main hall. I put down the brush, turning to instruct, Arthur, practice writing by yourself first. In the main hall, Isabella was standing in front of a landscape painting hanging on the wall. Hearing movement, she turned and curtsied. Please forgive me, Consort Shen. Noble Lady Isabella is too polite. I signaled for her to sit, my voice calm. I wonder what brings you here today. A maid served tea and cakes, then withdrew. Isabella took a small sip of tea, only then slowly opening her mouth. Actually, I came to say thank you. That day at the Phoenix Palace, if not for my lady arriving in time, I'm afraid. She stopped there, a trace of lingering fear flashing in her eyes. I smiled faintly. Noble lady exaggerates. Her Majesty was just temporarily unwell. That matter has nothing to do with you. Isabella looked at me for a long time, her voice lowering a few degrees. My lady is indeed benevolent as the rumors say. It is just that, I always feel that my lady seemed to know in advance that something would happen. My heart moved. Isabella was indeed smarter than others. Just a coincidence. I replied indifferently, then slowly continued. On the contrary, noble Lady Isabella, meeting the Empress privately, that matter was truly too risky. Isabella smiled bitterly. How could I not know? It was just that Her Majesty sent someone to summon me. I dared not disobey. She hesitated for a moment, finally gritting her teeth and speaking. My lady. Speak. I have not been in the palace for long, but I have always heard that Consort Shen has a placid temperament and does not fight with others. Isabella looked at me with sincerity. In this harem, I feel as if I am walking on thin ice. I hope my lady can give me some guidance. I quietly observed the woman before me. In my past life, she was once my greatest rival. We fought until one of us, yet in this life, she actively came to beg me to show her the way. Noble lady flatters me. I slowly shook my head. I am just an idle person. How dare I say I can guide you? Isabella seemed to have anticipated this refusal. My lady is too humble. Although I have not been here long, I can see that my lady is highly favored by the Empress Dowager. Even the Emperor respects you exceptionally. This is absolutely not a coincidence. I only smiled and did not answer. She took a deep breath and continued, I dare not expect my lady to protect me. I only hope that if one day I encounter danger, I might receive a word of reminder from my lady. Words have reached this point, if I refuse again, it would overly deliberate. I pondered for a moment before speaking, my gaze locking with hers. Since noble Lady Isabella is so sincere, let me remind you of one name. Isabella held her breath, listening intently. Vanessa. Isabella's eyes lit up with immediate realization. She hurriedly stood up to bow deeply. I understand. Thank you, my lady. When she prepared to excuse herself, her gaze inadvertently paused on the book Zhuangzi placed on the table. She couldn't help but ask curiously, does my lady also read Zhuangzi? Just occasionally flipping through it. I replied casually, picking up the book. When the springs dry up, the fish are together on land. They moisten each other with their dampness, and keep each other wet with their slime. But it would be better forget each other in the rivers and lakes. It has some flavor, doesn't it? Isabella fell silent for a moment, appearing thoughtful. Then, she whispered, but I feel that since we are already together on land, it is better to help each other survive than to perish alone. I was slightly stunned. I didn't expect her to choose to interpret it that way. Perhaps so, I replied indifferently, though my voice carried a slight ripple of surprise. Then I turned to instruct my maid. Emma, see noble Lady Isabella out. In mid-October, the Emperor organized a horse riding and archery competition for the princes in the royal garden. Arthur had just turned 11. Under my intentional nurturing, his skills in riding and archery had long surpassed the princes of his age. I did not pray for him to sit on that throne early. I only hoped that in the future, no matter what happened, he would have enough ability to protect himself. Mother, I am worried. Before setting off, Arthur tugged lightly at my sleeve, lowering his voice. I squatted down, adjusting his collar, and slowly instructed, remember mother's words, do your best, that is enough. Do not mind winning or losing. On the competition field, the princes appeared one after another. The third prince, born of the late consort Hui, was 9 years old this year. His archery was steady. The fourth prince, born of consort Willow, was only 6 years old, but with the help of guards, his performance was considered not bad. Then it was Arthur's turn. His first arrow missed the target. A few soft chuckles rang out from the surroundings. I unconsciously tightened my grip on my handkerchief. My heart hung in suspense. But then I saw Arthur take a deep breath. His gaze gradually steadied, and he knocked an arrow again. The second arrow flew true. The third arrow. The fourth arrow. The further he went, the steadier his hand became. Every subsequent arrow hit the bullseye. Applause gradually rang out across the field. Good. Emperor William rarely revealed a smile, but he was beaming now. Worthy of being my son, he turned to his attendant. Head eunuch Li, bestow my small golden bow to the eldest prince. Arthur ran joyfully toward me. Mother, did you see? I won. I reached out to pat his head, my voice softening. Mother saw it. Arthur is very skilled. Father Emperor praised me. His eyes shone brightly. He said I resemble him when he was young. My heart warmed slightly. In this life, at least I have allowed father and son to have more time together, letting Arthur feel more of a father's protection. Consort Shen. I didn't know when the Emperor had come to stand beside me. Regarding Arthur's riding and archery, you have truly put in effort. I immediately bowed to respond. Answering your majesty, it is all thanks to tutors teaching with proper methods. I only occasionally supervise. No need to be humble. The Emperor looked toward Arthur, who was showing off the small golden bow to the eunuchs in the distance. This child is naturally intelligent and willing to work hard. He will surely achieve great things in the future. I lowered my head to hide the complex emotions in the depths of my eyes. Your Majesty praises too much. I have decided. The Emperor suddenly continued, his voice calm but allowing no rebuttal. From tomorrow onwards, let Arthur come to the royal study for 1 hour after school every day. I will personally teach him government affairs. My heart shook violently. This was something that never happened in my past life. Arthur was the eldest son. If he was personally taught by the Emperor, that meant he was being groomed. I thank your Majesty for your grace on behalf of Arthur. I forced myself to be calm, replying slowly. The Emperor looked at me deeply, his meaning unfathomable. Catherine, you are always so restrained. After saying that, He turned and left, leaving me standing there, my mood unsettled. When the first snow of November fell, Elizabeth sent someone to invite me to the Phoenix Palace. I originally thought she was unwell again, but unexpectedly, when I entered, I saw her complexion was gentle. She was sitting in the warm pavilion arranging flowers. "Sister, you are here!" Elizabeth smiled and greeted me. "Come quickly, taste the newly tributed Longjing tea." I curtsied and sat down opposite her. "Sister looks very well today. Once you think things through, naturally you will be well." Elizabeth poured tea for me herself, her voice gently mentioning, "I still have to thank you for your enlightening words that day." I was slightly surprised. I didn't say anything. "It is precisely because you said nothing." Elizabeth's gaze was clear and calm. "That day when I woke up and saw you guarding by the bed, in your eyes, there was no pity, no mockery, only calmness. At that moment, I suddenly understood, so, in this harem, one can also live like that." I quietly took a sip of tea, momentarily not knowing how to respond. "These past days, I have thought a lot," Elizabeth continued, her fingertips gently stroking the white chrysanthemum petals before her. "After marrying the emperor, I placed my everything on him. When he loved me, I felt I was the happiest person in the world. When he was cold, I felt like I had fallen into hell." She let out a soft breath, her voice lowering. "Until I saw you, Catherine, do you know? Envy me." I almost choked on the tea in my mouth. "Envy your freedom," Elizabeth said sincerely, her tone rarely this soft. "You have your own world. Arthur, poetry, flowers and plants, those things are enough to make you happy." I put down the teacup, a mixture of 5 flavors rising in my heart. In my past life, Elizabeth was my enemy until death, yet now she regarded me as a mirror to follow. I replied softly, my voice lighter, "Sister flatters me." Elizabeth shook her head, her eyes firm. "No need to be humble. I invited you here today to tell you I have decided to live, once again, with the dignity an empress should have. No longer self-pitying over the emperor's coldness, nor jealous of Isabella anymore. I want to learn to live like you." Looking into those eyes, my heart suddenly softened, a trace of emotion flashing through. Perhaps in her bones, Elizabeth had always been a wise person, it was just that the years of struggling in the palace had distorted her nature. "If sister can think like that, it is truly the fortune of the harem," I said with all my sincerity. Elizabeth smiled, then as if remembering something, she added, "Right. I heard Arthur frequently goes to the royal study these days." "Yes. The emperor is personally teaching him government affairs." "This is a good thing." Elizabeth nodded, her tone steady. "Arthur is intelligent and benevolent, he will surely achieve great things. You rest assured, I will do my utmost to protect him." My eyes involuntarily grew hot. I bowed slightly. "I thank sister for her kindness." January 15th, the Lantern Festival. I had just returned from paying respects at the Empress Dowager's palace when Emma hurried to report. "My lady, noble Lady Isabella is here. She even brought quite a few gifts." I frowned slightly. Since the last incident, the number of times Isabella visited the Blossom Palace had indeed increased significantly. Each time, she had a perfect reason. Sometimes asking about poetry, sometimes bringing new embroidery patterns. Today, she used the occasion of the Lantern Festival to bring heavy gifts. Invite her to the warm pavilion. I took off my cloak and changed into a simple set of casual clothes. "I greet Consort Shen." Isabella curtsied, her smile radiant as spring sunshine. "On the occasion of the Lantern Festival, I specially came to pay respects to my lady." "Noble lady is too polite." I signaled for her to sit. "On such a big festival, why not prepare a banquet in your own palace?" Isabella instructed her maid to present a brocade box, her voice gentle. "I personally made some tangyuan. I thought my lady might like them." She opened the lid. Inside were 6 crystal clear rice balls. "This is the method from Jiangnan. Thin skin, plenty of filling, using lotus root powder for the skin, so it isn't greasy." I was a bit surprised. In my previous life, I had tasted this kind of tangyuan. It was originally made by Isabella exclusively for the emperor. I didn't expect that in this life, she would bring it to me first. Noble lady truly put in the effort. I told Emma to accept it. "Arthur will definitely like it. Is the eldest prince well lately?" Isabella asked with concern. "I heard the emperor often summons him to the royal study." I lifted my teacup, using the motion to observe her expression. "He is well. It is just some elementary lessons." Isabella nodded gently, her voice carrying a few notes of admiration. "The eldest prince is smarter than others. He will surely achieve great things." She paused for a moment, then lowered her voice. "My lady, I came here today, actually, I have a favor to ask." Finally getting to the main point. I put down the teacup, my voice calm. "Speak." Don't be shy. Isabella looked straight into my eyes, not beating around the bush. I have entered the palace for nearly a year. Although I receive the emperor's favor, in this harem, every step is like treading on thin ice. I want to ask for consort Shen's protection. I raised an eyebrow slightly, the corner of my lips curling up. Noble Lady Isabella currently enjoys the emperor's deep affection. Why would you need me? Isabella smiled bitterly, her voice sinking. Imperial favor is like flowing water. Today it is here, tomorrow it is gone. I understand clearly, without a foundation, no matter how much favor one has, it is just a castle in the sky. She took a deep breath and continued, My lady is trusted by the Empress Dowager. You also have the eldest prince by your side. If I could receive my lady's guidance, I would be infinitely grateful. I did not reply immediately. An unspeakable ripple rose in my heart. In my past life, Isabella relied on her own ability to stand firm in the harem, never bowing her head to anyone. Yet in this life, she actively sought me out. I looked at her and asked directly, What do you want? An ally. In this harem, I need someone I can trust. And my lady needs someone who can speak a few words in front of the emperor. We each take what we need. I quietly watched her for a while, then laughed. Noble lady is indeed smart. But based on what do you assume I need you? Because of the eldest prince, Arthur. Isabella replied without hesitation. My lady can live in forbearance, not fighting or snatching. But the eldest prince grows older day by day. Sooner or later, he will be swept into the battle for the heir apparent. Although I am untalented, I can still speak a few words in front of the emperor. My heart shook violently. She actually saw through things to this extent. I could disregard favor, disregard status, but Arthur's future. I could not help but care. My voice turned cold. You have quite the courage, daring to discuss the matter of the heir apparent. Isabella remained calm. I do not dare. It is just preventative measures. Saying that, she took a thin booklet from her sleeve and placed it on the table. These are the records of succession disputes from the previous dynasties that I have compiled. Perhaps they will be useful to my lady. I picked it up and flipped through a few pages. I couldn't help but be shocked in my heart. From the process of fighting for the heir position to the final outcomes, everything was recorded in meticulous detail. This was not the work of a single day. I closed the booklet and looked at her deeply. How long have you been preparing these things? Isabella smiled. Since the day I entered the palace. I have a habit. Understand the rules clearly before placing a bet. I pondered for a moment, then asked, What return do you want? My lady's trust, and assistance at critical moments. Isabella spoke sincerely. I ask for nothing else. The warm pavilion was silent. The charcoal stove crackled softly. Outside the window, the faint sounds of palace servants preparing for the lantern festival drifted in. Finally, I nodded. Agreed. But let me say this first. I will not do anything that goes against nature or morality. Joy flashed in Isabella's eyes. My lady, rest assured. Neither will I. No oath was needed, no contract required. Just a trade that both understood clearly in their hearts. A subtle agreement had taken shape. The west wind of early February was chilly, blowing through the harem where undercurrents were rising. Today, Arthur returned from the royal study, his expression completely different from usual, silent and reticent. Even at dinner, he only ate a few mouthfuls of rice carelessly, then put down his chopsticks, saying he was full. What's wrong? I reached out to touch his forehead, my voice slowing down. Are you feeling unwell? Arthur shook his head. He hesitated for a while, finally looking up at me, suddenly asking, Mother, why can't I be the crown prince? The chopsticks in my hand trembled slightly, almost falling to the table, forced my voice to remain steady. Who told you these things? Today, I was reading in the side hall of the royal study. Arthur lowered his voice, word by word, as if afraid of alerting someone. I heard Tutor and Father Emperor talking. They said the crown prince should be established early to stabilize the country. They also said that although I am the eldest son, but what? I suppressed the raging storm in my heart. But my birth mother's status is not sufficient. Arthur's gaze rested on my face, carrying unconcealed confusion. Mother, what does this mean? Why does whether I can be the crown prince or not have to do with you? My chest felt like it was being squeezed by something tight. Every beat was painful. In my past life, Arthur died prematurely and never had to face these cruel palace realities. But now, how could I explain to an 11-year-old child that his destiny was tightly bound to his mother's status? Arthur. I pulled him to sit by the window, my voice softening. I know. The tutor once said honeybees have a queen bee, worker bees, and drones, correct? Yes. I spoke softly. The queen bee is born a queen bee, not because she is smarter or braver than other bees, but simply because she was born that way. The world of humans is sometimes like that too. There are people who, because of their birth, are destined to shoulder more. Arthur, half understanding, hesitated and asked, "So, because mother is not the empress, I cannot be the crown prince?" "Not necessarily." I smoothed his hair gently. In history there were many wise monarchs whose birth mothers were not empresses. The important thing is, I lifted his small face, looking straight into his eyes. No matter what the future holds, you must become an upright and kind person. Do you remember? Arthur nodded. He was silent for a moment, then asked softly again, "Then, does Father Emperor like the third brother more?" My heart tightened. The third prince, the one who ascended the throne in the previous life, was only 10 years old now. Had he already been regarded by the courtiers as the chosen one? Father Emperor loves every child equally. I forced a smile. "All right, these are not things you should worry about. You have school tomorrow. Rest early." After coaxing Arthur to sleep, I stood alone in the courtyard, looking up at the starry sky, my mind unable to find peace. In my past life, I unscrupulously fought for favor and status, ultimately harming others and myself. In this life, I just wanted to live peacefully and keep Arthur away from those disputes. But now it seemed, the tree wants to be still, but the wind does not cease. At the end of February, the weather gradually warmed up. That day, I went to the Palace of Compassion to pay respects. The Empress Dowager suddenly mentioned, "The Emperor recently asked about the relationship between you and noble Lady Isabella." The teacup in my hand paused for a moment. "What did His Majesty say?" "He said you have always been a loner, but lately you have been quite close to noble Lady Isabella." He asked if I knew the reason. The Empress Dowager's eyes carried a deep meaning. I put down the teacup, my voice lowering. "I and noble Lady Isabella only occasionally discuss poetry and books. We are not deeply acquainted." These words can fool others, but they cannot fool the Emperor. The Empress Dowager shook her head. "He is suspicious. You have the eldest prince associating with a favored concubine at this time. How could he not be suspicious?" My heart turned cold. With the Emperor's personality, he would definitely suspect that I approached Isabella with ulterior motives. Careless. I lowered my voice. "Please guide me, Empress Dowager. The Emperor hates it most when the harem colludes with the front court." The Empress Dowager spoke slowly. "If you let him feel that you are associating with Isabella for Arthur's future." My spine went cold. "Because that was the true purpose of my alliance with Isabella." "I understand," I replied solemnly. "I will act carefully." In early April, a piece of news quickly spread throughout the harem. Consort Vanessa's father, General Pei, won a great victory in the northwest, wiping out 30,000 enemy troops and capturing the tribal chief alive. That meant Vanessa's backing was even more solid. It also signaled that she was about to regain power. "My lady," I heard the Emperor was greatly pleased. "He wants to promote Consort Vanessa's rank." Emma reported worriedly. I was trimming the orchid in front of me, my expression as calm as usual. "Within expectations. But, Consort Vanessa has always regarded you as a thorn in her eye." I put down the scissors in my hand, my voice calm. "It's fine. Go invite noble Lady Isabella here." Isabella arrived very quickly. Her complexion was indeed not very good. As soon as she entered, she whispered, "My lady must have heard the news. General Pei has established great merit." I poured her a cup of tea, pushing it in front of her. "Do you have any plans?" Isabella pondered for a moment, then replied, "It is not advisable to confront them directly for now. I intend to temporarily avoid the spearhead." I nodded. "Wise. After Vanessa returns to favor, the first person she will want to deal with is definitely you. These days, try to go out as little as possible. Food and clothing must be checked carefully." Isabella looked at me, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you for the reminder, my lady." She hesitated for a moment, then continued, "There is one more thing." "What is it?" I asked. Perhaps I have good news." The teacup in my hand trembled slightly. "Are you certain?" "I dare not be certain yet. My monthly cycle is half a month late, and I have often felt nauseous recently." Isabella gently placed her hand on her abdomen, her voice very soft. "I want to wait until it is confirmed before announcing it." I thought for a moment, then said, "Don't spread the news yet. If Vanessa knows you are pregnant, she will definitely become even more crazy." Isabella nodded. "I understand." I looked at her still flat lower abdomen, a complex emotion difficult to express rising in my heart. In the previous life, Isabella was also pregnant, but in the end, If history repeats itself, should I stop it, or just stand by and watch coldly? Noble Lady Isabella, I spoke sternly. From today onwards, your daily meals, I will send someone specialized to prepare them. Your clothes and utensils will also be taken from my place first. A flash of emotion appeared in Isabella's eyes. My lady, no need to say much. I cut her off. Just consider it, for the sake of our agreement. Seeing Isabella leave, I stood by the window for a long time without speaking. Vanessa regaining favor, Isabella pregnant, and the growing calls in the court to establish an heir apparent. Wave after wave of incidents were enough to completely change the situation of the harem, and I, a person reborn who should have watched coldly from the sidelines, had unconsciously sunk deep into it. Emma, I instructed softly, go to the warehouse and bring out that set of silver needles. Also, from today onwards, all food and drink in the Blossom Palace must be strictly inspected. Yes, my lady. On the 5th day of the 5th month, the Dragon Boat Festival, a banquet was held in the palace. I originally did not want to let Arthur attend, but the emperor issued a special decree requiring all princes to be present. Before setting off, I instructed him countless times. Remember, only eat the food brought from our Blossom Palace. Politely refuse anything others offer you. I remember. Arthur nodded obediently. Mother has said it many times. I reached out to adjust his collar, but an indescribable anxiety rose in my heart. At the banquet, Isabella wore a loose palace dress. Her belly was not yet showing, but her complexion was rosy, her eyes sparkling with the gentle light of motherhood. Consort Vanessa appeared in full attire. The pearls and jade on her head dazzled under the sun. She repeatedly toasted the emperor. Every word revealed her smugness. And because of her father's war merits, the emperor was exceptionally tolerant of her. Halfway through the banquet, a young maid carelessly spilled wine on Isabella. As Isabella stood up to go change her clothes, I inadvertently caught Vanessa's gaze. I saw her wink slightly at a close servant beside her. Anna, I lowered my voice, glancing toward the bustling banquet. Follow them and take a look. Don't alert anyone. Anna nodded slightly and quietly slipped away from the party. A moment later, she hurried back, leaning close to my ear and whispering, her voice trembling with urgency. My lady, it's bad. Someone is burning musk incense in the side hall where noble Lady Isabella is changing clothes. The chopsticks in my hand froze, nearly snapping into musk. In the previous life, Isabella's first child died because of this very thing. Where is noble Lady Isabella? I asked immediately. This servant reminded her in time she did not enter that room. But Anna's voice lowered even further. That maid let it slip. Now the entire banquet knows noble Lady Isabella is pregnant. My heart sank. The news of Isabella's pregnancy was forcibly made public just like that, right when Vanessa was at her proudest. Sure enough, upon hearing the good news, the emperor was overjoyed. He immediately promoted Isabella to consort Isabella and bestowed countless rewards. Vanessa stood aside, forcing a smile, but the sinister look in her eyes could not be hidden no matter how hard she tried. After the banquet dispersed, I found a way to avoid everyone's eyes and secretly met Isabella behind the artificial mountain in the royal garden. Today's incident was absolutely not accidental. Isabella's face was pale, her voice trembling slightly. There must be Vanessa's spies around me. Fooling, your personal maid. I said directly, not beating around the bush. She is Vanessa's person. Isabella looked at me in shock. How does my lady know? Intuition. I replied perfunctorily, hiding the things I couldn't say. The urgent matter now is to clean up the people around you. From today onwards, I will personally arrange all your food and clothing. Isabella gratefully grasped my hand, her voice choked. My lady's great kindness, I will never forget. No need for thanks. I patted the back of her hand gently, my voice slow but allowing no refusal. Remember, starting now, you are sick. Except for paying daily respects to the Empress, claim illness and do not go out for the rest of the time. As for the emperor, Isabella understood and nodded firmly. I understand. Returning to the palace, I immediately ordered people to prepare a set of gold needles and some detoxifying herbs, planning to personally give them to Isabella the next morning. Emma stood by, looking like she wanted to say something but stopped. If you want to say something, just say it. I didn't lift my head, continuing to arrange the items in my hand. My lady, Emma hesitated. Why are you so devoted to consort Isabella? If it's just for the eldest prince, it doesn't seem necessary to… Emma. I cut her off, my voice calm to the point of coldness. There are some things that don't necessarily need a reason, just like in my past life. I harmed people without needing a reason. So in this life, If I want to save people, I also don't need a reason. On the 7th day of the 5th month the nightmare descended. I was practicing calligraphy when Anna burst in a panic, her voice almost breaking. My lady, the eldest prince, he fainted in the schoolroom. Darkness fell before my eyes. In my past life, Arthur died prematurely. Could it be that even after being reborn, I still cannot change this ending? Summon the royal physician. My voice was hoarse. Immediately send word to the royal study. When I ran to the schoolroom, Arthur had been moved to the side hall. He lay on the bed, his face pale, his lips turning purple without a trace of blood. Tutor Zhang stood aside, pacing back and forth anxiously. What happened? I threw myself to the bedside, grasping Arthur's cold hand. Answering, Consort Shen. Tutor Zhang reported with a trembling voice. The eldest prince was fine just a moment ago. Suddenly he cried out that he was dizzy and then he collapsed. I reached out to check Arthur's pulse. The pulse was thin and weak, intermittent. My heart went completely cold. This was clearly poisoning. What did he eat today? I asked sternly. Only drank the tea provided by the schoolroom. A servant replied, trembling. I immediately grabbed the teacup on the table and sniffed it closely. Inside the scent of tea, there was a faint smell of bitter almonds. It was arsenic. In the previous life, Vanessa used this very poison to kill Consort Willow. Go brew mung bean and licorice soup. Hurry, I roared Anna, unable to hide my panic. And go get the white jade bottle at the bottom of my dressing box. When the royal physician rushed in, I had already managed to make Arthur drink the antidote I had prepared myself. This was something I had secretly prepared after my rebirth, just to guard against this very day. My lady, this. The physician looked at the empty bowl, hesitating. It's arsenic, I said directly, leaving him no room to retreat. The dose isn't large, but Arthur is young, he can't withstand it. Apply acupuncture immediately. The physician was shocked by my judgment, but the situation was critical, so he dared not delay. He knelt down and began applying needles. Just as the emperor arrived, Arthur suddenly vomited a mouthful of black blood. His complexion gradually turned rosy again, and his breathing slowly stabilized. What is going on? The emperor's face was ashen, his voice sinking. The physician bowed his head to the floor. Reporting to your majesty, the eldest prince was poisoned. Thanks to Consort Shen discovering it in time and using the right medicine, his life was preserved. The emperor's gaze shifted to me, a trace of surprise flashing through it, but I no longer had the mind to explain. I only held Arthur's hand tightly, afraid that if I let go for even a second, he would disappear again. Investigate. The emperor ordered coldly. Investigate thoroughly for me. After Arthur was temporarily out of danger, I instructed Anna and Emma to guard him without leaving a single step. As for myself, I immediately went straight to the Cloud Palace. Vanessa was enjoying flowers. Seeing me barge in, she pretended to be surprised and smiled. Oh my, Sister Shen, why are you so free to visit? You poisoned him. I interrupted directly, my voice cold as ice. The smile on Vanessa's face didn't change at all. She sighed. Sister really speaks words I don't understand. The eldest prince met with a mishap. I am also very heartbroken. The young eunuch in the Cloud Palace put arsenic in the tea. I stepped forward, pressing her word by word. Consort Vanessa, do you dare to do it but not dare to admit it? Vanessa narrowed her eyes, waving her hand for all servants to withdraw. When only the two of us remained in the hall, the fake smile on her face vanished instantly. So what if I did it? She sneered. Do you have evidence? My hands clenched into fists, fingernails digging deep into my palms. In my past life, I used methods 100 times more cruel to take revenge. But at this moment, looking at that smug face, I suddenly became strangely calm. I said slowly. But I warn you. Vanessa, if anything happens to Arthur again, I guarantee the Pei family will be buried with you. Vanessa laughed loudly, full of contempt. Rallying on you. My father is a key official of the court with illustrious war merits. Even the emperor has to respect him 3 parts. What are you? Your father's achievements overshadow his mastered. I don't need to instigate. I whispered, my voice light as a breeze. You tell me, in the emperor's heart, is there truly no grudge at all? Vanessa's face changed instantly. You dare to sow discord. Just out of the palace gates, my legs went soft. I had to hold onto the palace wall to stand firm. Anger and fear hit me like a tide, almost drowning me. Just a little bit more and I would have lost Arthur again. My lady. Anna ran over breathlessly. The eldest prince is awake. He is crying and asking to see you. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm my emotions. Let's return. In the royal study, the atmosphere was heavy as iron. The emperor sat high on the dragon chair, his face terrifyingly gloomy. I knelt below, quietly listening to head eunuch Lai report the investigation results. Arsenic was indeed found in the tea. The investigation shows that the young eunuch in charge of serving tea was transferred to the schoolroom 2 months ago. Moreover, he is from the same hometown as the manager of the Cloud Palace. What else? The emperor asked coldly. That young eunuch jumped into a well and committed suicide last night. The emperor slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Good. A dead man tells no tales. I knelt silently, laughing coldly in my heart. Vanessa worked cleanly indeed. The clues were cut off flawlessly. Consort Shen. The emperor suddenly looked at me. Why did you recognize it was arsenic with just one glance? I had long prepared for this. Answering your majesty. When I was young, I witnessed a servant in my household accidentally eating arsenic. The symptoms were exactly the same as Arthur's. In recent years, being idle, I read some medical books. The emperor stared at me for a long time, seeming to weigh the truth of my words. Finally, he nodded slightly. Thank you for this time. Then, he turned to head eunuch Li, coldly issuing an order. Consort Vanessa managed her subordinates poorly, causing harm to the prince. Fine her half a year's salary and ground her for 3 months. Just that. My heart went cold to the bone. My son almost lost his life, yet the culprit only received a punishment as light as a breeze. Your Majesty. I couldn't help but look up. Arthur. I know. The emperor interrupted me, his voice sinking. But her father just established great merit. The court needs people right now. I lowered my eyes, saying no more. Right. In the heart of an emperor, how can the life of a son compare to the stability of the empire? I didn't see through this in my past life. In this life, I understand it better than anyone. Consort Shen. The emperor's voice softened slightly. I will increase the guards protecting Arthur. Besides, for your merit in saving him, I promote you to noble consort. Noble consort. I almost laughed out loud, using a rank to compensate for the pain of almost losing a child. Is this the so-called favor of an emperor? I thank your majesty for your grace. I bowed mechanically, not a single ripple left in my heart. Although Arthur escaped danger, his body was still weak and needed long-term recuperation. I guarded his bedside day and night, personally brewing medicine and feeding him, afraid that another mishap would occur. Mother, I'm fine now. Arthur forced a weak smile. Don't cry. Only then did I realize tears had fallen on his cheek. I hurriedly wiped them away, whispering, Mother isn't crying. It's just dust in my eyes. On the 5th day, Elizabeth suddenly came to the Blossom Palace personally. Sister. She looked at my haggard face, her eyes full of pity. It has been hard on you these past days. I forced a smile. Thank you for your concern, sister. Arthur is much better. Elizabeth signaled her entourage to withdraw, checking Arthur's condition herself. Then she pulled me to the outer room and lowered her voice. I know who poisoned him. I immediately looked up. Does sister have evidence? No. Elizabeth smiled bitterly. But I am not stupid. Vanessa has always seen Arthur as a thorn in her side. Now that consort Isabella is pregnant, she can't sit still. I remained silent. Elizabeth continued, I have ordered that from now on, the food for all princes will be handled by special personnel. Every dish must be tested for poison before serving. Furthermore, she lowered her voice, a trace of caution in her eyes. I have also added more manpower to consort Isabella's side. I looked at her in surprise. In the previous life, Elizabeth was weak and indecisive, never daring to conflict directly with Vanessa. Yet in this life she acted with such thunderous resolve. I unconsciously opened my mouth. Sister, why? Elizabeth looked at me, a rare firmness in her eyes. Because I am the Empress. Her voice wasn't loud, but every word carried weight. Protecting the imperial offspring is my duty. Moreover, she reached out and held my hand, her grip not strong but very firm. Arthur is also a child I watched grow up. My heart suddenly warmed, my eyes stinging. In the past life, in this life, we stand on the same battle line for a common goal. Fate truly teases people. I took a deep breath and said solemnly, Thank you, sister. Elizabeth shook her head, her voice becoming gentler. No need for thanks. I have asked for a decree to let Arthur move to the side hall of the Phoenix Palace for a while after he recovers. It is closer to the royal study, and the emperor can visit him often. Besides, it is safer. I understood her intention perfectly. The Phoenix Palace was where the Empress resided. No matter how arrogant Vanessa was, she wouldn't dare to act rashly there. In early June, Arthur's health gradually recovered, and he moved to the Phoenix Palace. Isabella secretly came to visit. I was packing clothes for Arthur when she walked in. She greeted me, then asked solicitously, As the eldest prince fully recovered, I nodded. Much better. I signaled for her to sit, thanks to Her Majesty's care. Isabella nodded slightly, then whispered, Her Majesty has been exceptional caring towards me lately as well. She gently stroked her belly, her eyes revealing some expectation. If this child can be born safely, I will definitely not forget the kindness of Her Majesty and my lady. I looked at her lower abdomen, which was not yet showing, 100 emotions intertwined in my heart. In the previous life, Isabella's first child could not be kept. In this life, can I change that ending? I gathered my thoughts and spoke directly. Vanessa won't let it go. You are now carrying 2 lives, you must be even more careful. Isabella clenched her hands, a flash of determination in her eyes. I understand. With the eldest prince being poisoned, I see Vanessa's cruelty even more clearly. My lady, rest assured, I will absolutely not follow the same disastrous path. I pondered for a moment, then stood up, opened a cabinet, took out a small box, and placed it in her hand. This is a pill I made myself. Safety pill. Take one every 3 days. It can strengthen the pregnancy and enough to resist common poisons. Isabella accepted it solemnly. My lady, you are even proficient in medicine. Just some superficial knowledge, I replied perfunctorily. Remember, aside from what the Empress and I give you, do not eat anything gifted by others. I will remember. Seeing Isabella off, I stood by the window for a long time without moving. At the beginning of my rebirth, I only wanted to stay away from the struggle, only praying for Arthur to grow up in peace. But without knowing when, I had unknowingly sunk deep into this vortex, forming an alliance with Isabella and Elizabeth to confront Vanessa. The enemy of the previous life became the ally of this life. The obsession of the past turned into the protection of today. Perhaps this is the true meaning of rebirth. Not just changing the ending, but also changing oneself. In early July, a memorial from the Northwest reached the court, shaking the entire government. General Pei dared to use words implying, forcing the emperor to abdicate. To describe his own merits, the Empress Dowager slammed her teacup on the table, laughing coldly. He thinks he is Zhugliang now. I sat silently below, gently massaging the Empress Dowager's shoulders. In my past life this scene also happened. General Pei's arrogant memorial was the beginning of the Pei family's decline. How did the emperor react? The Empress Dowager turned to ask the matron-aunt beside her. The emperor was furious. He tore up the memorial right in the court. The aunt whispered. He has issued a decree reprimanding General Pei and summoning him back to the capital to report. The Empress Dowager glanced at me meaningfully and spoke slowly. Catherine, what do you think? My hands didn't stop moving, my voice as respectful as usual. I am dull and do not understand politics. I only know that merit overshadowing the master has rarely had a good ending since ancient times. The Empress Dowager nodded with satisfaction, patting my hand. You, on the contrary, see very clearly. How is Consort Vanessa lately? The Empress Dowager asked. Since being grounded, she has been more behaved than before. I answered honestly, then paused for a beat, choosing my words carefully. However what? I heard she secretly sent someone to deliver a letter to the Northwest. A glint of sharpness flashed in the Empress Dowager's eyes. As the news reliable, Consort Isabella told me, I whispered. She has spies in the Cloud Palace, just as Vanessa planted people in hers. The Empress Dowager chuckled softly. This Isabella is also someone with means. She pondered for a moment, then continued, tell her to keep watching. If there is any movement, report to me immediately. I understand. Leaving the Palace of Compassion, I saw head eunuch Li from afar, leading several young eunuchs rushing toward the royal study, carrying a stack of memorials in their hands. Looking at that thickness, I feared the number of impeachments against General Pei this afternoon was not small. Returning to the Blossom Palace, Arthur was reviewing his books. Since the poisoning incident, he had lost quite a bit of weight, but his eyes were even more resolute than before. Mother. He put down his book to welcome me. Is Imperial Grandmother well? The Empress Dowager is very well. She asked about you. I rubbed his head. Tutor Zhang said I have improved a lot. Arthur's eyes lit up. Today, Father Emperor came to the schoolroom and even praised my essay. My heart warmed. Right. Arthur suddenly lowered his voice. I heard Father Emperor and Tutor Zhang talking. It seems they want to punish General Pei. My heart skipped a beat. What else did you hear? They said General Pei is arrogant and does not respect Father Emperor. Arthur asked in confusion. Mother, didn't General Pei establish many war merits? Why is Father Emperor unhappy? I thought for a moment, then spoke softly. Arthur, remember Mother's words well. As a subject, no matter how great the merit, one is still just a subject. Once they forget their duty, that is the path to inviting disaster upon themselves. Arthur nodded obediently. In mid-July, Isabella suddenly visited in secret, her face pale. My lady? Something happened. She dismissed the servants, speaking slowly. Speak. The day before yesterday, Dr. Ju checked my pulse, he said. Isabella's voice trembled. In the imperial family, this is considered an ominous omen. If it spreads. My heart shook. In the previous life, her first child died due to musk, so she never had to face this dilemma. Twins in the imperial family were indeed seen as bad luck. Lightly put, one would lose favor. Heavily put, I didn't dare. Dr. Ju reliable. He is my confidant. He has temporarily suppressed the news. Isabella bit her lip. But when the months get bigger, we won't be able to hide it. I pondered for a moment, then said, there are two ways. One is to use medicine to let one fetus naturally atrophy, keeping the healthy one. The second is to find a way to deceive the heavens and cross the sea, arranging everything when you give birth. Tears welled up in Isabella's eyes. I can't bear to give up either of them. I looked at her, understanding clearly in my heart. Although I never truly loved the Emperor in my past life, my motherly love for Arthur was real. I understood the feelings of a mother toward unborn life better than anyone. Then choose the second path. I spoke decisively. My voice allowed no hesitation. From today onwards, wear looser clothes. I will prepare some medicinal diet to control the growth of the fetuses so your belly doesn't look too big. Isabella gratefully grasped my hand, her voice choked. My lady. Great kindness. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. I interrupted seriously, my gaze becoming steady. This path carries enormous risk. Once discovered, it is the crime of deceiving the Emperor, with no way back. I understand. Isabella took a deep breath, a rare determination in her eyes. For my children, I am willing to take the risk. I nodded slightly, continuing to instruct. Also, during labor, we must arrange absolute trustworthy manpower. I will personally be present. My lady? Isabella looked at me in shock, her voice carrying unconcealed worry. This is too dangerous. If a mishap occurs, my lady will also be implicated. I chuckled softly, my voice lightening a few degrees. Rest assured, I have experience. Although I never gave birth to twins in my past life, I witnessed quite a few difficult births. Now, let me check your pulse. Isabella obediently extended her wrist. I carefully examined it. The pulse is slippery and strong. Indeed, it is twin signs. It's just that your qi and blood are slightly weak. You need to nourish them, but not excessively, to avoid the fetuses growing too large. Remember, aside from Dr. Ju and me, absolutely do not let a third person know the truth, not even the Emperor or the Empress. Isabella immediately bowed deeply. I will remember. At the end of the Emperor suddenly visited the Blossom Palace. Greetings, Your Majesty. I curtsied in surprise. Since I was promoted to noble consort, the Emperor had come even less often. Perhaps in his eyes, the promotion was compensation enough. Rise. The Emperor seemed to be in a good mood. Where is Arthur? He is reviewing his lessons in the schoolroom, I replied. Do I need to summon him back? The Emperor waved his hand. No need, I came to find you. He sat down, accepting the tea served by the maid. Recently, I read Arthur's essays. He has quite the insight, especially his suggestions regarding the Yellow River flood control. Even the tutor praised him. Your Majesty praises too much? I replied modestly. Arthur is just discussing military tactics on paper. On paper. A different light flashed in the Emperor's eyes. He has talent. I intend to let him start coming into contact with some simple government affairs. My heart shook slightly. In the previous life, Arthur never had such an opportunity. Yet in this life, the Emperor actively proposed it. Your Majesty, Arthur is only 11 years old. He is my eldest son. He should shoulder heavy responsibilities early. I was silent for a moment, then whispered, I only hope Arthur can grow up safely. The Emperor frowned. Catherine, you have always been wise. Why are you confused on this matter? If Arthur is just an idle prince, when the new ruler ascends the throne in the future, what ending will he have? My heart went cold. This remark clearly carried deep implications. I am only worried he is too young to bear these things. With me here, what are you afraid of? The Emperor's voice rarely softened. I will personally teach him. You just need to be a good mother to him. I bowed my head and said yes, but my heart was in turmoil. After the Emperor left, I immediately sent someone to invite Arthur back. Mother. Arthur ran in excitedly. I wrote a poem today, and Father Emperor even praised it. I pulled him to sit down, my voice slowing. Arthur, Mother has something to ask you. If Father Emperor asks you to start learning how to handle court affairs, are you willing? Arthur's eyes immediately lit up. Really? Do you know what this means? I looked at him seriously. It will be very hard and also very dangerous. I know. Arthur said, his voice calmer than his age, his eyes revealing a maturity far beyond my expectations. The tutor once said, when heaven is about to place a great responsibility on a man, it always first frustrates his spirit and will, and exhausts his body. I am not afraid of hardship. He hesitated a bit, then asked further, his voice lowering, is Mother worried? Like last time. My heart stung. I pulled him into my arms, gently stroking his hair which had become stiffer than before. Mother only wishes for you to be safe and happy. I understand. Arthur leaned close to me, his voice firm again. But I also want to become a person like Father Emperor. For the country and the people, achieving a great career. Looking at those eyes, a very clear feeling rose in my heart. The child who used to need my protection every step of the way, has truly grown up. Good. I kissed his forehead lightly. Since you have decided, Mother supports you. But promise, Mother, no matter what difficulties you encounter, tell me. Okay? Arthur nodded vigorously. I promise, Mother. In early August, General Pei obeyed the decree and returned to the capital. The news arrived while I was playing chess with the Empress Dowager in the Palace of Compassion. General Pei knelt outside the Chuan Yuan Gate for an hour yesterday. The Emperor steadfastly refused to grant him an audience. The Empress Dowager placed a chess piece down, her voice casual as if discussing the weather. I pretended to be shocked. Is His Majesty that angry? Not only that. The Empress Dowager laughed coldly. Someone has already impeached him for embezzling military funds and forming cliques for personal gain. The Emperor has ordered Prince Ray to investigate thoroughly. My heart jumped. The memories of the previous life suddenly rushed back. The Pei family's collapse back then also started from these crimes. Does Consort Vanessa know yet? Naturally, she knows. The Empress Dowager glanced at me meaningfully. I heard that in the Cloud Palace, porcelain has been replaced very frequently these past few days. I fell silent. No matter how arrogant Vanessa was, she lived relying on the power of the Pei family. If the Pei family fell, her doomsday would not be far behind. Catherine. The Empress Dowager suddenly called my name. If Vanessa loses power, who do you feel is most suitable to take over the management of the 6 palaces? The chess piece in my hand paused. Naturally, it is Her Majesty the Empress. Elizabeth's nature is too soft. The Empress Dowager shook her head. All these years, if not for your secret help, she would have long been suppressed by Vanessa to the point of suffocation. My heart shook. Those words were no different from a direct hint. My talent is shallow. Enough. The Empress Dowager interrupted me. I know your ambition lies not here, but there are some responsibilities you cannot avoid just because you want to. Leaving the Palace of Compassion, my heart was in a mess. The Empress Dowager was right, with Arthur being increasingly valued, wanting to stay completely out of it was impossible. Since I couldn't avoid it, I might as well take the initiative. On the way back to the palace, I met Isabella just coming out of the royal study. Greetings to noble consort Catherine. She curtsied properly, but her eyes sparkled with a strange light. Consort Isabella need not be polite. I hissed indifferently. As His Majesty well. His Majesty just finished approving memorials and is resting. Isabella lowered her voice. My lady, great news. His Majesty just issued a decree stripping General Pei of his title as Grand General of the state, and demoting him to General of Jiangning. My heart tightened. Compared to the previous life, everything was happening much faster. It seemed the Emperor's patience with General Pei had reached its limit. Does Vanessa know? She probably doesn't know yet. A glint of cunning flashed in Isabella's eyes. I have arranged people. When Vanessa hears the news, there will definitely be a good show. I glanced at her, my voice sinking. Don't go overboard. I understand. She replied obediently, but those eyes showed she had long had her own calculations. August 15th, the Mid-Autumn Festival Banquet. Consort Vanessa pleaded illness and did not attend. Since the news of General Pei's demotion spread, the Cloud Palace closed its doors in silence, enveloped in gloom. At the banquet, Empress Elizabeth looked radiant, handling everything neatly and smoothly. Isabella, because her pregnancy was unstable, also did not attend, which actually lessened my worries. After the banquet, Elizabeth specially kept me behind, speaking gently. Sister, accompany me for a walk. The moonlight was like water, quietly spilling over the cobbled path in the royal garden. Elizabeth dismissed all her entourage, leaving only her and me walking side by side in the quiet night. Catherine. She suddenly called my name. Her voice carried a slight tremble. These years, thank you. I turned to look at her in slight surprise. Why does sister say this? Elizabeth smiled softly, looking up at the bright moon hanging high. I know very clearly. If not for you silently managing things behind the scenes, this Empress position of mine, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to sit securely long ago. Before, I put my whole heart on the Emperor, not seeing the dangers of this harem clearly. Until, I unconsciously asked. Until what? Elizabeth turned to look at me, her gaze deep. Until I saw you. You don't fight or snatch, handling everything thoroughly, indifferent to fame and profit, yet no one dares to bully you. I only understood then so, a woman can live like this. No need to rely wholeheartedly on a man, yet still able to live remarkably. In the previous life, Elizabeth was bound by love until death. In this life, because of me, she gradually found her own value. I replied softly, my voice light as the wind. Sister flatters me, I am just used to being lazy. Elizabeth laughed. You are always so humble. Her expression became serious. I found you today because I have an important matter to discuss. The Pei family is about to fall. Vanessa has stumbled. The situation in the harem will inevitably change greatly. I want to invite you to manage the 6 palaces. My heart shook. Managing the 6 palaces meant great power, but the responsibility was equally heavy. I fear that I'll. Just as I opened my mouth, Elizabeth grasped my hand tightly. Don't rush to refuse. Not for me, but for Arthur. He is growing up day by day. If you don't have power in your hands, how can you protect him completely? I was silent for a moment. In this deep palace, power was originally the best amulet. If I wanted to protect Arthur, I couldn't hide behind others forever. Finally I whispered, I obey the decree. Elizabeth smiled happily. Good. With us sisters of one mind, this harem will surely be stable. Sisters of one mind. Those 4 words used to be the greatest luxury in the deep palace, yet today they became strangely real. In early September, the news of General Pei being stripped of his post and investigated shook the court like thunder. That day, I was teaching Arthur to identify medicinal herbs when Anna hurried over, her voice full of panic. My lady, something big happened. General Pei was escorted back to the capital and thrown into the Ministry of Justice's prison. The herb in my hand froze for a moment. Compared to the previous life, everything happened faster and more ruthlessly. I asked in a deep voice, is there any movement from the Cloud Palace? Anna lowered her voice. Consort Vanessa made a scene demanding to see the Emperor but was stopped by head eunuch Li outside the royal study. I heard that after returning to her palace, she smashed quite a few things and beat several maids to vent her anger. I sighed softly, a trace of sorrow rising in my heart. No matter how arrogant Vanessa was, she was just a person imprisoned in this deep palace, living on the power of her father and brother. Mother, consort Vanessa, she. Arthur looked up at me. I rubbed his head, my voice slow. She has lost the most important thing. Arthur, remember well, people living in this world cannot place all their hopes on external things. Whether it is power, wealth, or the favor of others, all can vanish in the blink of an eye. Only a heart strong enough is the true support. Arthur nodded seriously. These principles, I feared he still couldn't fully understand the bloody lessons behind them. But I believed there would be a day he understood on his own. Right at that moment, Emma suddenly ran in a panic, her voice trembling. My lady, something happened at the Jade Pavilion. Consort Isabella suddenly has severe abdominal pain. Dr. Zhu says it is poisoning. The medicine bowl in my hand crashed to the ground. Sure enough, it finally came. Vanessa's counterattack in desperation. I immediately calmed down, ordering coldly, prepare the sedan chair. Then I turned to Arthur, my voice sterner than ever. You stay in the palace. You are not allowed to go anywhere. The Jade Pavilion was in chaos. Isabella's face was pale. She lay on the bed, her forehead drenched in cold sweat, her hands gripping the sheets tightly. Dr. Zhu was applying acupuncture, his face terrifyingly grave. I walked quickly to the bedside, asking in a deep voice, what exactly happened? Dr. Zhu replied with a trembling voice, it is olander poison mixed into consort Isabella's medicine to steady the pregnancy. Luckily it was discovered in time, otherwise. I didn't wait for him to finish, grabbing Isabella's wrist to check her pulse directly. The pulse is slippery and scattering. It is indeed poisoning. Fortunately, it has not endangered her life yet. The heartbeats of the 2 fetuses are still strong. I immediately shouted at Emma, go to my palace. Get the safety pill and bring the bag of gold needles here. Hurry. Emma immediately turned and ran. I turned to Dr. Zhu, my voice cold as ice. Have you induced vomiting? He hurriedly replied, vomiting has been induced. I shook my head. Not enough. I bent down to check Isabella's pupils, continuing in a deep voice. Alander poison enters the heart meridian. We must immediately protect the heart meridian. I took out a small bottle from the scented pouch at my waist and poured out 2 pills I had meticulously crafted myself. They contained rhino horn musk and ox bezoar. Dr. Ju immediately turned pale upon seeing them. But musk is harmful to the fetus, he stammered. The dose is small. It doesn't matter. I interrupted him sharply. Saving the life is more important. Without hesitation, I pinched Isabella's jaw and forced the medicine down her throat. Not long after, Isabella's breathing gradually stabilized, though she remained unconscious. In her stupor, she murmured softly, "My child, keep my childly." I held her hand tightly, my voice steady and assuring. "Don't be afraid. Both you and the children will be fine." Emma returned quickly with the golden needles and detoxification powder. I personally performed acupuncture on Isabella. In my past life, I researched all kinds of poisons to fight fever. I never expected that in this life, I would use them to save people. 2 hours passed. Isabella finally escaped danger. Dr. Zhu wiped the sweat from his forehead and bowed. "Noble consort Catherine, your hands truly brought back the dead." My expression hardened. "Who administered the poison?" A young maid immediately knelt, crying as she spoke. It was Yungxiang from consort Vanessa's side. She impersonated someone from the Imperial Household Department to deliver the medicine to steady the pregnancy. A cold light flashed in my eyes. Just as predicted, Vanessa had reached a dead end. She actually dared to lay hands on the Imperial offspring. I stood up, instructing in a deep voice. "Take good care of your mistress. Report any abnormalities to me immediately." Leaving the Jade Pavilion, I did not stop but walked straight toward the Cloud Palace. It was time to bring this to an end. The main gates were shut, but the sounds of smashing objects still echoed from within. I signaled the guards not to announce me and pushed the door open directly. The main hall was in chaos. Vanessa stood amidst a pile of broken porcelain, her hair disheveled. Her once glamorous face was twisted. Seeing me, she laughed coldly, her eyes full of venom. "Catherine Shen, here to see my joke." I replied coldly. "I have no such leisure." "Vanessa, you ordered someone to poison consort Isabella. The evidence is irrefutable." Vanessa laughed loudly, her voice frantic. "Irrefutable evidence? Is that lowly maid still alive? What a pity." She smashed a vase hard on the floor. "The Pei family hasn't fallen yet. What do I have to fear?" I looked straight at her, pressing word by word. "General Pei has already been thrown into the Ministry of Justice's prison. Don't you know?" Vanessa froze. "You lie." "I don't need to lie to you." I took a step forward. "You don't think for yourself, but don't you think for Lainey Pei? Your niece is only 12 this year. Do you have the heart to implicate her?" Vanessa's body shook, her face turning ashen. Her voice trembled, unable to hide her panic. How do you know?" "Miney." I slowly stepped forward, my gaze calm to the point of coldness. "I know more than you think. Stop now. The Emperor, considering the Pei family's past merits, will not take your life. But if anything happens to consort Isabella or the Imperial heirs..." Before I could finish, Vanessa burst out laughing. Her shrill laughter echoed in the magnificent chamber, crazy and hair-raising. "Ha ha ha. Catherine Shen, oh Catherine Shen, you pretended to be noble all your life, and now you finally reveal your true face. Is it worth it for Isabella?" I looked straight at her, my voice remaining steady without a ripple. "Not for her. For the innocent children." Vanessa's laughter stopped abruptly. She stared at me, emotions in her eyes churning in chaos, resentment, unwillingness. "Do you know, what I hate most is this look of yours. Forever high and mighty, forever untainted by the dust of the world." She stumbled closer, the corner of her lips curving into a tragic smile. "Catherine, do you think you won? Let me tell you, in this deep palace, there has never been a winner." I looked at those crazy eyes, a sudden sorrow rising in my heart. The Vanessa of the previous life was also like this, walking step by step toward destruction in despair. "Lin Pei. I will keep an eye on her," I whispered, my voice so light it almost dissolved into the air. "At least I will find her a decent family." Vanessa was stunned. The madness in her eyes gradually faded, replaced by confusion and deep exhaustion. She slowly slid down to sit on the floor, her figure resembling an old woman who had aged in an instant. Why is it you?" I didn't answer, simply turning to leave the chamber. Behind me, Vanessa's heart-wrenching cry rang out, lingering for a long time in that cold, magnificent space. 3 days later, the decree was handed down. Consort Vanessa, for plotting to harm imperial heirs, was stripped of her rank and banished to the cold palace as a commoner. General Pei was executed immediately. The Pei family's entire property was confiscated, and the clan was exiled. Only the underage females were pardoned. On the 10th of October, Isabella went into labor. That day the autumn sky was high and clear. I had arrived early at the Jade Pavilion to supervise. "How is the situation?" Elizabeth asked anxiously. Dr. Zhu wiped his sweat, replying respectfully. "Reporting to Her Majesty, Consort Isabella's fetal position is correct. She should be able to give birth safely. It is just that, her body is weak, so the labor might take longer. Her Majesty need not worry," I added calmly. Elizabeth nodded, pulling me aside and lowering her voice. "Catherine, if it really is twins, I have thought of a countermeasure." "Speak," I whispered. "Just say the second child is an auspicious sign bestowed by the heavens, arriving because the Empress prayed with a sincere heart. According to the rules, it can be raised under the Empress's name." Elizabeth's eyes lit up. Just as she was about to say more, Isabella's cry of pain interrupted her. The midwife shouted loudly, "Consort, push." A full 4 hours later, an infant's cry rang out, tearing through the night. "It is a little prince," the midwife announced joyfully. But before anyone could sigh in relief, Isabella trembling gripped the bedsheets. "There is one more." Dr. Zhu's face changed drastically. "Quick, prepare, the second one is coming." After another hour of arduous struggle, the second child was finally born safely. "It is a little princess," the midwife announced joyfully, "a great auspicious sign." Elizabeth knelt on the ground to offer thanks. "This is the Emperor's benevolence moving the heavens, bestowing an auspicious sign upon our great Shah." Good news reached the royal study. Emperor William was overjoyed. He immediately issued a decree promoting Isabella to Consort Isabella and bestowing 1,000 taels of gold. As for the taboo of twins, under the name of Dragon and Phoenix auspicious sign, no one dared to mention it anymore. I looked at the exhausted but happy Isabella, and the 2 healthy little lives lying beside her. The heavy stone in my heart was finally lifted. The tragedy of the previous life has been completely rewritten in this life. Spring of the 15th year of the Kangyuan era. In the royal garden, I sat in a pavilion watching the children not far away. Arthur, now 16, was teaching Isabella's 5-year-old twins to write. His expression was serious yet gentle. "Sister truly has elegant interests." Elizabeth walked over leisurely, sitting down gracefully beside me. "Sister?" I stood up to curtsy, but she stopped me. Being polite again, Elizabeth laughed and shook her head. Her gaze slowly turned toward the children playing, her voice softening. "Look how happy they are." I nodded slightly. 5 years had passed. The harem was strangely peaceful. Vanessa had ended the rest of her life in the cold palace. The other concubines also behaved themselves. Elizabeth managed the harem in an orderly manner, while Isabella and I gradually became her most capable right-hand women. "I heard yesterday the Emperor tested Arthur on his lessons and praised him," Elizabeth asked casually. "Yes," I smiled and replied. "The Emperor has started letting him practice reviewing memorials." Elizabeth moved slightly, carrying some deep meaning. "The wind of establishing the crown prince is blowing again." My expression remained calm. "Arthur is still young. No rush." Elizabeth shook her head and laughed. "If it were anyone else, they would have been anxious to push their son onto that seat long ago. Only you remain so indifferent from beginning to end." "It is not indifference, but that I have thought it through. The game of power that I couldn't see through in my past life. I predict like a god in this life. The position of emperor is not necessarily a blessing, peace is the truth." "Ah, right." Elizabeth lowered her voice, leaning closer. "Consort Isabella has good news again." I nodded. "It has been 2 months. Dr. Zhu says the pregnancy is very stable." "That is good." A very faint trace of envy flashed in Elizabeth's eyes, but it quickly turned into relief. "I am blessed with no children of my own, but having Louis and Anne, these 2 children are enough to make me content." Louis and Anne were the nicknames of the Dragon Phoenix twins. Isabella, grateful for the protection from me and the Empress, actively asked for Prince Louis to be raised under Elizabeth's name. This gave Elizabeth someone to rely on for the future. As for Princess Anne, she was raised by Isabella herself. "Sister treats them like her own flesh and blood, that is their blessing," I said from the bottom of my heart. Elizabeth patted the back of my hand gently. "Between us sisters, let's not speak such polite words. Sisters. Right, we of the present are true sisters. The grievances of the past life have long since dissipated with the wind." "Mother Empress. Mother Consort." Little Anne skipped over, holding a freshly picked flower in her hand to give to us. Elizabeth laughed, hugging the girl into her arms. "Anne is so good." I quietly watched that scene. my heart filled with warmth. In the previous life, Anne was never born. In this life, she has become everyone's joy. The change of destiny is truly unexpectedly miraculous. Autumn of the 15th year of Kang Yuan. Emperor William fell critically ill. That day, I went to the royal study to pay respects. The emperor leaned against the dragon bed. His face was gray, but his eyes were still as sharp as ever. "Catherine is here." He waved his hand weakly. "Sit." I curtsied and sat on the stool he pointed to. The emperor coughed twice, his voice sinking. "Time is running out." I remained silent. In the previous life, it was also at this time. Only back then, I had already been banished to the cold palace, with no chance to see him. "Catherine." The emperor suddenly called my name. "I have always wanted to ask you one thing. Your Majesty, please speak. For these past years, why have you never fought for favor?" His gaze looked straight at me. "I have seen too many women use every means for favor. Only you remained so indifferent from beginning to end. Why?" I didn't expect him to ask this. I pondered for a moment before replying softly. "I believe that the love of an emperor is like a flower in the mirror, or the moon in the water. It cannot be forced. It is better to keep one's heart firm and live a little more freely." The emperor smiled bitterly and sighed softly. "Arthur, I am very satisfied. He is benevolent and intelligent. He will surely be a wise ruler in the future." My heart shook. This was clearly a hint about establishing Arthur as the crown prince. "Your Majesty, I know you don't want your son dragged into struggles." The emperor interrupted me. His voice clearly revealed fatigue, but his eyes remained firm. "But the great Xia Empire needs a monarch like him." He tried to sit up straight, every breath becoming heavy. "Catherine, promise me, if anything happens to me, teach Arthur well. Let him be a benevolent ruler." I knelt down solemnly, bowing my head to the floor. Every word was engraved in my heart. "I obey the decree." The emperor closed his eyes slightly, his voice fading. "You may withdraw. Let Elizabeth and the children in." I bowed and excused myself. Stepping out of the royal study, I saw Elizabeth, Isabella, and the children waiting at the door. Arthur was 21 years old this year. His figure was tall, his bearing calm. Between his brows, he carried the resilience of his father and the gentleness of his mother. "Mother." He looked at me with worry, his voice trembling slightly. "Father Emperor." I reached out to adjust his collar, shaking my head gently. "Go in. Father Emperor is waiting for you." Watching their backs entering the royal study one by one, I suddenly understood, in this life, I finally obtained everything I begged for in vain in the previous life. Children growing up safely, sincere friends by my side, and a heart that is finally at peace. The grievances and loves of the past, by this moment, they were no longer important. Spring of the 16th year of Kang Yuan. Emperor William passed away. Arthur ascended the throne, changing the era name to Jingming. At the grand coronation ceremony, I stood watching my son wearing the dragon robe. His face was young, but his eyes already carried the bearing of a king. In my heart there remained only pride and peace. "Mother Empress." After the ceremony ended, the young emperor called me, his voice a bit nervous. I am still worried. I helped him adjust the royal crown, my voice slow and firm. "Remember mother's words. To be a king, take benevolence as the root, and the people as the priority. As long as you have the people in your heart, you need not fear anything." Arthur nodded seriously, bowing deeply. "I will follow mother's teachings." Elizabeth was honored as the Empress Dowager. I was honored as the Holy Mother Empress Dowager. Isabella was titled Grand Consort Isabella. Her son Louis was crowned a prince of the first rank, and little Anne became the Grand Princess Anne. The previous struggles of the harem gradually turned into harmony. The bloody battles of the past seemed like stories from a distant life. Today, I sat enjoying tea in the garden of the Palace of Splendor. Isabella led Anne to pay respects. She curtsied properly, laughter still dancing in her eyes. "Are you well lately?" "Very well," I smiled, pulling Anne closer. "You've grown taller again." Little Anne leaned into my arms, acting spoiled. "Mother Empress, Anne wants to hear a story." "What story do you want to hear?" "I want to hear the story of when you were young." Isabella and I looked at each other and laughed together. "The story of when I was young. That is a very long, long story. About rebirth, about salvation, about a woman once bound by hatred who finally learned to let go and found true happiness. The past life was like a nightmare that has dissipated. In this life, I have lived very well." The story closes with a very peaceful scene. Empress Dowager Elizabeth, Holy Mother Empress Dowager Catherine, and Grand Consort Isabella sit together drinking tea, watching their children and grandchildren playing in the garden. The man who once made the entire harem fight. in the end, remains only a name on a spirit tablet. The story of Catherine teaches us that true power lies not in the frantic pursuit of control, but in the quiet strength of letting go. In her first life, Catherine was consumed by the flower in the mirror, the fragile illusion of imperial favor, leading only to her ruin. Upon her rebirth, she realized that an emperor's heart is as fickle as the spring wind. By choosing to cultivate her own inner peace, protect the innocent, and foster genuine sisterhood with Elizabeth and Isabella, she transformed a den of enemies into a sanctuary of allies. It is a reminder that when we stop fighting for the world's validation, we finally gain the wisdom to protect what truly matters: peace, family, and our own integrity. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.